Welcome to Creative Spaces Podcast with Guy Zwick, Chief Creative Officer of Highway 85 Creative. In each episode, we will discuss creative ways to define your space and build your brand.
All right, welcome to the next edition of the Creative Spaces Podcast.
This is going to become the Don and Don show.
We are with the two Dons, unrelated, but they might be related after the show. We don't know.
Maybe.
Welcome to the show, Don Colliver.
Yes.
And welcome to the show, Don Svehla.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So, and I'm, of course, joined by, I guess I'm your sidekick, or you my sidekick?
I don't know. You're better at this.
We're running the show here.
But it's our show.
Sincerely, you guys, thanks for coming on to the show. We appreciate it. Let me just start with you, Don, to my left. Can you just tell me who you are, what your name is, who you're here with, and kind of why you're here?
I'm Don Svehla, and I'm with Exhibit City News. We're a business-to-business publication covering the face-to-face industry.
Okay.
We've been publishing for 23 years. We're based here in Las Vegas, 6 blocks from the Las Vegas Convention Center.
Yep. Okay.
And that's us.
All right, beautiful. And then Don Colliver?
Yeah, my name's Don
Staple
Colliver.
in the industry.
Yes, staple.
Yes.
I'm
Hey,
proud.
We'll loop back to that.
Yes.
Yeah, Don Colliver. I'm a presenter and facilitator. My company is Cirque To Work. My background is I'm a clown with Cirque and Blue Man Group before I was doing presenting work.
Really?
And so now I teach booth staff to engage in that level, which is super helpful, and there's a ton of crossover.
And well said. I mean, it's to take everything you do and kind of shrink it. That's a really good soundbite. I'm going to loop back to that in a second because a lot of trade shows show up, don't do a good job. There's so many elements that you got to nail, and one of them is does your sales team, does your marketing team get the fact that they're spending a lot of money to be here, make it worthwhile? How do you engage? What's the message? Do you shake your hands? I'm sure you can go on and on and on. So. But I do, since you just mentioned, let me ask you a little bit more. So are you a coach or an MC? Do companies hire you directly to train their staff for a show, or is it more of an engaged relationship?
Primarily, I'm a presenter. So a company will book me to go to RSA, CES. I was just at CES for Panasonic.
Right.
And I'll just deliver their pitch.
Paid presenter.
Yeah, paid presenter.
Right.
And what they're getting when they hire a person with clown background is I can engage in a deeper level than the normal presenter.
Are you presenting in this attire? Like, what are you wearing?
Absolutely, just like standard attire. No nose, like none of that craziness.
Right.
But what I can do is I can like look people in the eye and comment on what they're wearing or comment on the temperature and get people in the booth on the basis of really seeing them and them really connecting with me.
So is a big part of what you do on the floor, or is it sort of on the the panel side of things, speaking? Are you actually on the exhibit floor?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You're in the actual
yes.
trade show booth then?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. Booth theaters.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Okay, and yourself, and in this industry's been up and down. Here's a question I'd love to ask you, because the whole thing about trade shows are dead. We have FaceTime, we have Skype, we have all these OTT type providers. But every year, trade shows aren't dead, and the face-to-face meeting can't be beat.
Right.
But so, I mean, can you give me just your commentary on the evolution of the trade show business?
Yeah. I've been in the industry 36 years, and when the virtual trade shows came out, a lot of people were worried. At that time, we were already doing a gut check, after that tremendous downturn, wondering how fast it's going to come back, what's it going to look like when it does come back.
Yep.
But as time has panned out, I think you guys can agree, all these things are like embellishments now to it, if that's the correct word, meaning they work in tandem. One promotes the other. These digital things can give a life to the show that's only 2 or 5 days. It can give it a life all year and help exhibitors out if they know how to embrace it and use it.
Right, and that's a well said. It's it's just sort of coffee talk, but there absolutely
it complements it now.
There absolutely could be a middle ground between over praying to the digital deities and sticking your head in the sand and being, I'm just about the old school pop-up booths. There can be a way to maximize your presence to make human contact and then give that content perhaps some extra life digitally.
Sure.
Do you as your job, are you a writer? Do you write? Do you cover? Do you interview? What do you do?
When I started the publication in Chicago 23 years ago,
I heard the accent.
I did it all.
All right.
Now I oversee most of what's going on with the editorial, ad sales, circulation, and the other things. We do a lot of industry outreach stuff.
All right. Now, do you guys work with Exhibitor magazine at all? Are you guys sort of competitors? How does this all work?
We're not really competitors. We're totally different animals.
Okay.
But to the untrained eye, they would look at the magazine side by side, and some would think we were, for sure.
What are some of your ed pieces on? What do you guys write
Well,
about?
you know, if I can back up a bit, we started as a newspaper.
Okay.
You know, we're 23 years old, and we've only been a glossy publication for 3 years as of the show. We debuted at the show 3 years ago.
Okay.
But the newsprint, you know, it's something for everybody. We covered the industry from a broad spectrum, 12 different segments: the convention, trade show, and event industry.
Okay.
So,
all right, that's how it started. Okay. Guy, anything you want to just?
No, I'd like to know from your perspective. In the last 10 years, what you see. I'll just state if you agree with this, but some of these trade shows are becoming more of events than they were in the past.
Yes.
You know, they're becoming bigger. Like, you can use CES, you can use...
They're a lot more immersive. And part of that's digital, part of that's understanding you can't just be a one-dimensional
I see the
booth.
event world, I see these two colliding a little bit more now than they used to.
Well,
it's all about the experience.
Well,
so
yes. I mean, your livelihood is to do exactly that, right? If you just, what can you do to make your booth be more immersive, become more alive, differentiate, right? That would be a big part of it. So, yeah. So let's. Did you guys see his the back guy's T-shirt? This whole "Be Thankful" thing we got going on in the booth.
Yep.
All right. So I'm gonna put my buddy Guy on the spot.
Yep.
And I'm gonna say, and he's gonna say it, and I'm gonna sort of lead into the questions for you guys. But tell me about Guy. Tell me in your own words what this whole "Be Thankful," flip your thinking is.
It's simple. I have deal with prospects and clients that I hear this way too often, and that is, I'm not sure why we go to that show. Well, we have to be there, or else our competitors are going to think that we're not doing well. I'm not sure if we're getting an ROI on this, and yet here we are, loading up their exhibit, taking it to the show, putting it up, taking it down, and there just is this complacent, like they're not winning enough. So, and that I think it's a little bit of a negative attitude sometimes to some of these approaches to the shows. And it's like, these things are a gift. I mean, where else can you go, like at CES, see 55,000, potential customers, see where your industry's going, meet with your top 5, clients all in one place for a condensed 3 days. You're not flying all over the place. I mean, it's amazing if you plan, if you measure and you put all those parts and pieces, you could be winning more. So that's our theme, is like, hey, man, people need to. I mean, some are.
It's a gift.
But it is. And when we were all year asking people this question, we kind of get that. You get like this kind of like, It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
These people think they just need to show up and the rest just happens automatically.
Exactly. And then they wonder why they have all these questions afterwards. Like, I don't know if we're getting something out of this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And
So,
so,
yes.
so on the back end of that, well, actually, let me pause for a second. Any reaction to what he just said? Like, hope, is that just a bunch of pooey, or is that something that you guys think is actually legitimate? No, I mean, listen, and don't hold any punches.
Yeah,
because
no, honestly.
Trust me, this guy, it's not rhetoric for this guy. But as industry veterans, I sincerely would love to hear your take on that. What do you think?
Well, it depends on the objectives of the company, I mean, there's some companies it doesn't make sense with their marketing objectives to be at the trade shows.
Exactly.
Even
I agree
with all
with that.
those
I
things.
agree with that, right?
Absolutely.
Don't
you
go
said.
if you... Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, look, I'll give you guys an example. I came here to Exhibitor twice with other companies back in the day that I work with. We got nothing out of it. It was a complete bust, and we never returned again.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought of ever coming here and playing with these big boys was like, well, that's just a waste of my money. And then last year, when I came, I planned, I measured, and we reached every goal that we had set from, win an award here from ExhibitorLive, find a big fish, X amount of leads, team building. We need an international partner. Boom, boom, check. Get return on my money, because I was putting my money where my mouth was now, what I'm telling my clients to do. And we got everything we asked for. We did everything.
But-
and I'm back here, and I'm not going away.
And in front of that, though, and I've been with you on one of our pitches is
I was one of the. But my point is, I was one of those people in my talking about my own industry show, saying, like, that's kind of I don't know, that's a waste of money.
No, but in front
you know what I mean? I don't know.
But I'll say this: in front of that, there are times when going to a trade show is the wrong way to do it, and you've done. I've heard you say that before.
Yep.
Listen, why do you want to go to the show? You're not
tell
ready
people,
for it.
don't go
It's
there.
too much money. It's too big. It's not going to. So to your point, but if that trade show is right for them, I mean, do it right. If you're going to go, do it right.
I also I hear in companies I work with what you just said. You put a ton of work on the front side to make it fruitful, and these people can barely, a lot of times, be dealing with their current workflow. So it's a lot of work.
That is a very good point.
To make it work. And rather than what if they just don't have the time? Like, it may be a job bandwidth issue to make it
That's actually,
work.
I mean, it's one of the first guy that actually mentioned that, but without getting too much dirty laundry. These guys still have clients right now. And by the way, I'm one of them. I have 2 shows going out in the next 2 weeks that they're building me a booth. So you're right. They're like flying people back and forth. So sometimes, bandwidth-wise, strategically, you might have to think about that, right? That's a good point. Your reaction, Don, to the whole be thankful, you're going to do it right kind of mantra. What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. Our own industry. It's like the baker that eats the day-old bread.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
It's like we're terrible at practicing what we preach. I think we've gotten a little better.
Right.
But still, and the fact that the show happens in like one of the busiest times of the year, it's like everyone complains about that. It's just a reality. So
that's very funny. So I'm going to go to the million. I'm going to skip over one question because I think both of your livelihoods revolve around trade shows in the exhibit industry. So I'm sure you're thankful for that. But the question I like to ask all my guests is this, and you kind of touched upon it, I think you already did too, is if the industry could change one thing to just make it better, what would that be?
Finding a more verifiable way to gauge the results from your investment.
Right.
And that's been the whole thing of the 36 years. It's a constant.
Yep.
And I don't see any easy answer on the horizon coming.
The guests right before you, they're at the show to speak, to lead a session on trying to legitimately measure the success of someone being on the show. And it's a little bit gray area still, but you're right. It's not like, oh, you do it, but you can't be successful unless you find out what successful means to you. And that means having that conversation up front. Do I want to pass out cars? Do I want to have leads? Do I want to have 15 meetings? Do I want to land? So I think it's not like a template that's the same for every company, but each company probably has to do a quick or a deeper dive thinking on what must be true for me to feel that this show is successful afterwards, right?
Yeah.
But we're getting that way. Hopefully we're getting there, but we're not there yet, are we?
No. I mean, think how many hundreds of thousands of exhibitors there are, in the United States every year.
Every year.
So, if you get just a small fraction to improve the process in which they participate in trade shows,
Do you think that's the role of the exhibit, the actual exhibit organizer itself?
It should be a lot more their role, but unfortunately they pass that buck down. Some of them, especially on the larger shows, as Don was saying, they have more of a program where you can, get into some sessions on how to maximize your investment, how to do the pre and post show stuff. Right. But even that's like a short presentation, but it whets their appetite, hopefully.
Very much. Don, same question to you. I mean, I know you've been. You seem like a pretty pensive person, so and again, you might have a left field comment, but I'd love to hear it. If there's 1 or 2 or 5 things, but specifically one thing that the industry could change just to make it better for everybody, what would it be?
There's a lot of elements, like I think that you touched on, absolutely, but just to zero in on kind of what I deal with, there's an ancient kind of communication that happens here on a show floor, like back to the Greeks, rhetoric and that sort of thing. And salespeople in their day-to-day life don't do that anymore. They're calling, they're making appointments with people that are expecting them, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Here, this is almost old school of guys like selling encyclopedias door to door, and there's a different way of communication and also communicating to groups. all at one time. And it's a completely different way of communication. And it'd be fun, and I think absolutely profitable for companies to spend some time on how do we communicate here, as well as what are our specific goals. But how does it, because if you put a sales guy that is great on the phone here, they're not going to do really well, and they're going to be exhausted by 11.
And we always say you've got to know your audience terrain. You know, a prospect that's been there 3 times to your booth needs a different type of engagement than the person who's been there for the first time, right? They're not the same message, you know. And so
I think you did a really good job hitting a high note of one thing, but I know you can get a lot deeper with that answer. But because, like you said, a person who's a star salesperson at a company coming out to a trade show, he might be out of his element. And if everything's done to the nines and it's perfect, pre, post, the show's good, giveaways are good, everything's lined up, but the head of the snake is not doing what they're supposed to do, it's a very marginalized effort, right? It really. So what I'd like to ask you, Don, is would you like to? So Guy and I do this podcast once or twice a month from his headquarters in Phoenix, but we're starting to invite guests onto the show to talk about some specific elements that make trade shows better for companies and trade show managers. Would you like to come on the show sometime and just kind of spit some? And we obviously promote your company, but just give some really good tips and pointers to folks who are trying to make their trade show experience better. Would you be interested?
Sure. Yeah, if you give me a heads up what you're going to ask me.
No.
Sweet, clickbait 3 points to blah, blah, blah.
No.
I can hook that up.
It's going to be clowns, LA, and Silicon Valley. No, honestly, it would be very much along these lines. But yeah, the EdCal that we're developing would give you some speaker notes. It'd be more, honestly, without to get too much derailed, it would be what you want to talk about. Your specific thing that you offer to clients to help them be better, that's what we talk about. And then we just go off that. There'd be no pop quizzes. I might throw a one-line zinger in there just to make it fun. Because
I can handle it, man.
I know you can.
I'm an
and
improviser.
that is the growth of our podcast, is we want to have more experts and good content that it's just not the two of us bantering back and forth.
Thank you for listening to Creative Spaces Podcast. For more information about Highway 85 Creative, visit us at highway85creative.com.